Well guys, I want to break down my bow and everything that I've went through to get it ready for this grizzly bear hunt. Because with it being homemade, it's not like you take it off the shelf and it just comes ready to go. I built every single piece of this bow, and with that, I'm not very great at it. So I built a lot of problems that didn't need to be here. And I want to break down what I had to do to fix them all. So step number one was I built the balance of the bow in the wrong place. So when I built the bow, I put the center of the bow actually too close to where the arrow is. So the actual center of the bow is right here, and the handle, where my hand goes, my hand actually liked to place down here. So it was causing uneven pressure in my limbs, which then caused weird arrow flight. So I actually had to build this up with a rubber stopper from that, basically what you use to put under furniture. I had to build this up to force my hand into position here. That way my hand would consistently stay in the middle. And what that caused, obviously, that fixed having the hand in the middle of the bow, but then my limbs weren't the same in terms of strength. My top limb is a little bit stronger than my bottom limb. So if you think of it from a compound perspective, that would mean this limb would come forward faster than this limb would, which would make it uneven limb timing, similar to cam timing in the compound world. So if you have one cam that comes forward faster than the other cam, you'll get horrible arrow flight. Well, I screwed up my limbs with this too. So one limb is stronger than the other, but significantly stronger, which causes some pretty serious issues. And so what that made me have to do, with this limb being so much stronger, I had to come above the center line. So the center of the bow from here, from tip to tip, is actually down here. I have to go above center in order to pull this limb further. Therefore it comes back slower in comparison to this. So then these two limbs will come together at the same time. And so what that basically means is now I'm severely knock high, which isn't terrible for trad bows. Everyone typically does shoot knock high. As you can see, the angle of the arrow would be similar to that. And that's typically not an issue, but I'm over an inch. And so what that's causing is severe hand shock with this bow. And with severe hand shock, when I release the arrow, the vibration of the riser moves my hand, which then can move the arrow slightly, so my group sucked. So how I fixed that is I actually added weight to the bow to absorb some of the issues with the hand shock. So these are 6-ounce fishing sinker weights that I put on the limb, but actually where it connects to the riser here, so it doesn't affect the speed of the limb. But I put 12 ounces up top and 12 ounces down below. And so I added 24 ounces of bow weight. And so this bow is heavy, but it's rock solid at full draw, and it takes a lot of that hand vibration out of it. So now that we have the bow completely boiled down to its core, that we really feel that we've got it dialed in, now it's time to adjust and tune the arrows. And so a lot of that starts with having a perfectly spined arrow. And because I want to run a lot of FOC, the more FOC you have, the more forgiving the arrow. I'm wanting to run 20 to 25% FOC. So that means I'm running about 300 grains to 350 grains at the very tip of my arrow, which is a lot. So I'm gonna need a pretty stiff arrow. I chose to go with a 340 spine ProComp. Now this is an arrow by Easton, literally one of the most winningest arrows in the Olympics for finger shooters. It is an unbelievable arrow because it has an aluminum core with a carbon exterior. And what this means is that it doesn't have an index. So it's perfect, and the entire circle of the arrow is completely perfect without an index, meaning it doesn't have a heavy side, which makes it extremely forgiving for finger shooters. So it's not designed for hunting, but I'm using it for hunting because it's so accurate of an arrow. And I probably will use that same arrow for my compound setup. And so building this arrow, I start with it heavy, and I shoot it with a bare shaft, and if I hit tail left, then I know that the shaft is too weak. If it shoots tail right, I know the shaft is too stiff. So you always want to start with it too weak, because you can always chop your arrow shorter. If it's too stiff, you literally have to add more point weight. So you want to have a general idea of how much point weight that you're going to want to start with. I want to run a 200 grain broadhead because one of my favorite fixed blade broadheads is 200 grains. So that's pretty much the main reason. So I have a little bit of adjustability with the insert, but I wanted to make sure that I had you know, a 200 grain broadhead, so I figured out a 65 grain insert with a 200 grain broadhead works perfect. So shooting an arrow, once I get the bare shaft to fly perfect, I know I'm really close to getting an arrow that is perfect for me. So I fletch it up, well, I build the arrows, then I fletch them, and then I shoot them with field points and with broadheads. And then if the broadhead hits to the right of the field points, I know the arrow is still a little bit too weak. If the broadhead hits to the left of the field points, I know the broadhead is still a little too stiff. So again, fine tuning there. What I do is if it's too stiff, most likely that arrow is just gonna be trash. But it's why you take off a little bit at a time, just 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch at a time, cutting off the arrow until it stiffens it right up to perfection. And then when I get those field points hitting perfect with the broadheads, you have the best and most well-tuned bow that you could possibly take into the woods. Another options that you can do to adjust micro tuning, so let's just say that your arrows are flying perfect, field points and broadheads are hitting the same, but they're to the right of the target, but they're perfectly tuned. You can also adjust the density of the side plate. So a piece of leather, for example, is very hard. I like to use furniture stoppers. Those are softer, and you can try those and try all different levels in between on the level of hardness that your side plate is. That will also affect the tune of the arrow and the impact of the arrow. So if you're hitting to the right, you can build your rest up. If you're hitting to the left, you can take it down. My bow, I build it to center. If I would have known better, I would have built it past center. So that is unfortunate, you know, error on my side building this bow, but I can't take it in anymore because the riser is going to get too thin. So that is just a series of unfortunate mistakes that I made building this bow. So you go down the list of all the issues that this bow has, it's pretty amazing that it can still shoot an arrow straight. And but I want to definitely show you guys how well the arrows fly. Ooh. Yes! Freaking awesome! Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's what you want right there. Check this out, guys. I've been working so hard to get this perfect arrow flight. I can't even tell you. Like this target is only 1.5 weeks old, and again, look at this. This is a disaster, and it's all because I've just put so many arrows in it. But this is the winner of the arrow. You can see the size of that broadhead. That broadhead makes this arrow very unforgiving, which means any error in the tune of this bow and the tune of the arrow will be shown by this, which means that thing would not have hit it in the bullseye, and it did. So this is extremely exciting, very special moment right now, because I've worked so hard to get that bow to shoot well. And this is gonna be what I take on that big old grizzly hunt. Maybe not that big of a broadhead. We'll shrink her up just a little bit. Woo! All right, let's go outside. Disappeared. So I solved the mystery of a perfect arrow flying out of this homemade bow. It took a lot of effort, as you guys can see, and if I'm successful with a grizzly bear hunt with this, you guys know that I didn't just walk out there and get lucky. A lot of effort, a lot of work, and a lot of time went into building this bow and tuning an arrow perfect for the setup. I couldn't be more pumped and more confident with getting in the woods in Alaska, so wish me luck.